Welcome to season 2 of Experience Focused Leaders. I am delighted to introduce you to Shane Neman, serial entrepreneur, venture capitalist, real estate developer. A story about Shane is that after dropping out from NYU Medical School, he built a venture, JoonBug, in the nightlife digital events powerhouse, and then took some of the lessons from that, wrote a book called Nightlife Lessons, but more interestingly, started his second business, which he founded and exited, Easy Texting, the largest business SMS SaaS platform in the US. And now Shane is a prolific backer of startups, runs real estate portfolio, including Santa Monica Pier. And I am delighted to have you on the pod. Shane, welcome.
Well, Alex, thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here as well.
All right, so let's talk about the question that probably doesn't come up on a typical businessy podcast, which is the New York nightlife scene.
Yeah.
And why did you decide that you could build a mega business there?
Um, it was accidental, just to be honest. I never thought that I would go from medical school into, an industry like the nightlife business. Just to be
Oh,
clear, we were in the
sorry to interrupt, but I
yes.
hear, doctors have a high addiction to alcoholism and other issues. So was there
That was
something that you
like the
started vibing already or not?
no, actually, part of the reason why we were successful is that we didn't really even party. I mean, I barely drank, but um, we were in we did something different. We built tech for the nightlife industry in general. So a lot of nightclubs, bars, event spaces used our tech. And we, eventually built, we built an operating system for them, which included like a marketing stack, POS. It also we did ticketing, which we were really one of the first ones to do that. Um, and how I got into that is a little bit of a convoluted story, but I had a startup um, that my roommate from when I was in medical school, he was working at Goldman, and he wasn't going to NYU Med like I was, but he was a friend of mine from a long time ago. He convinced me to drop out and during the dot-com boom, do a startup, and he found, investors that were dumb enough to give 22-year-olds millions of dollars to try a startup, which we did for about 2 years. And we went down with the dot-com bust as well.
So that was before med school.
That was actually about a year into med school. I
A year
dropped
into med
out.
school. Okay.
My roommate convinced me. We
Yeah.
did a startup during, the 1999
Yeah.
dot-com boom. About 2 years later, dot-com bust. And basically, I moved in with my girlfriend at the time who was going to FIT. And she worked at some of these nightclubs on the side in the in the on the weekends to make some money. And I would go to pick her up when she got paid at the end of the night. And I just kind of was looking around, and I saw everything was being done backwards, like pen and paper. This is 2000, 2001 time. And so I said, well, this doesn't look real. So like a real good solution. So I went back to her dorm room and I started, programming. I had a degree in computer science, actually. I went to med school, but I studied computer science, and the rest was history from there. We made the software and then sold it in to a few nightclubs, and then over the next decade, we became really the incumbent in that field. There was nobody really going after that niche. Um, and it turned into a really big business. And then the subsequent business, easy texting, came out of the need for sending text messages to patrons. Um, and this is like 2005 because the efficacy of email, we were using email marketing,
Yeah.
was really deteriorating because, at that time, basically Constant Contact and MailChimp and
Yeah.
everybody, the DJ had one, the club had one, the
The email
promoter had
marketing
one.
wasn't working. SMS started to work, and you saw that there was no scalable way to deliver SMS marketing,
Well,
and you built a business.
no one was
Yeah.
doing it actually. You
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
Google it and there was like, I mean, as far as I understand it, and maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, for years it was like shooting fish in a barrel for us because there was no solution. I mean, this is years before Twilio existed. It's
Right.
2005. Um, and so it wasn't as clear, text messages go through the phone systems and not through the internet. So it's a different situation. And when we first introduced it, it was part of Junebug. And I got like, I don't know, 100 calls right after we sent the first text message asking me how I did that, right?
Right.
And,
Right.
and
Because
the
there
light
was
bulb.
still it was still cool. Yeah, even like 2000. I'm kind of remembering Nightlife Live circa 2005, 8, 9. Like it was still pretty new to
Well,
get text.
2000, yeah, 2005 was like the intro of the BlackBerry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like as a practical matter, it wasn't really convenient
Yeah.
to text through a touchpad, right?
Yeah.
And so, the BlackBerry kind of opened that space up. I had a BlackBerry at that time, and no, really nobody was doing it, except for like in Europe. Some places in Europe were
Yeah.
doing it.
In London, like I remember in London, there was more going on. So back to those of us that would have relived the glory of the nightlife scene, right? So what was different about it now that you've been involved in many other businesses? You've sold it obviously outside of like the night experience
Yeah.
economy. What did you do? You obviously didn't drink, so you didn't have like some secret, you know,
No,
uh secret I would drink you under the table and close this deal recipe. So was it like any
I,
regular business, or like tell us more about
I
that
mean,
experience?
I think to a degree it was like any other regular business, except we were just kind of we looked at a niche that nobody else was looking at. It was also early, so there wasn't really a lot of competition. As
Hmm.
a practical matter, in 2000, 2001, barely most places didn't even have a website. So a lot of the tools that you take for granted right now, like MailChimp, like Facebook wasn't even around. Like um website like Wix or
Yeah.
Squarespace or these types of things. None of these things existed, right?
So you gave a full
Um
stack, and so you gave a full stack. So kind of like Open Table meets Eventbrite. Like that's kind of how I'm thinking about this. Is it like
Correct.
in?
There was no Eventbrite, so when we introduced ticketing, that was a really novel thing. And so I think for us, it was, the value proposition of abstracting that away for, who are actually really early adopters, if you think about it. They're
Yeah.
really, everybody in that business, they're really trying to maximize their profits as soon as possible. So they're willing to try anything that makes sense. And they really need to come to terms on who their patrons are. So, and who their patrons are tend to skew younger, and so
All
you need
right.
to speak to them on their level, right? Um, so people wanted to buy tickets online. People wanted to get invites via email. They wanted to see what's going on through a website. Those types of things. So,
And are
um,
the owners at that time in New York? Is this like some stereotype of,
yeah, literally.
mafia related, like something like
No,
all
no,
cash, or
no.
is it like a
Well,
clean, fun
yes,
business?
yes,
And
that's absolutely true. So, first of all, it started in New York, but we became, national over
okay,
the 10 years. But New York is like the heart of where everything starts, essentially. I think it's still true for the nightlife business. It's definitely the avant-garde. Um, Essentially, yeah. I mean, in the beginning, I was willing to do what other people weren't. I was willing to go and meet with these owners and managers and stuff on their terms. Like they could meet me at 3 in the morning, right? And so that's what I had to do. I had to meet them and do meetings at 3 in the morning. And a lot of times I may have to wait an hour because all of a sudden it got crowded and or they had an employee problem and I'm waiting till like 4 in the morning. Um, some of them wanted to pay us in cash, so I had to go and pick up cash. Uh, I mean, in the beginning, I did what I needed to do to make the business successful. And that meant doing a lot of things I didn't want to do, right? Didn't want to do, but you know, it was a bridge to get where we could then kind of set the terms for everything, right? Once you become the incumbent, um, everybody kind of comes to you and you become the de facto thing that everybody uses. So, no more paying us cash. You have to pay with credit card up front, like all these other things that came later. But I think, in the beginning, you have to be as flexible as possible and be willing to do what other people are not willing to do.
And at what point did you start feeling more confident? Was it that you just basically had more demand that you could cover? Is it you just
No,
felt
I
like
think I think when
efficiencies
we
weren't there?
started,
Yeah,
no, once we started, we were like closing at some point we started closing big corporate accounts because, like we would get like Johnny Walker or Mercedes that would want to kind of go into events and do sampling because this is like a real elusive demographic for them, young urban professionals with a lot of disposable income. How
right.
do you reach them? We were really the only database that had that. Um, we started doing other things that people didn't understand. Like we would go and take pictures at all the nightclubs and then post them the next day. Again, pre-camera phone era, pre-MySpace, Facebook era. Now like no one will do that because everybody has a camera phone. And then we would give out cards to go on the website and see, and then when you would want to see your picture, you'd have to give us your data, right?
Oh, I
And we
must have
understand
done that. I must be in your list somewhere that you've I've
absolutely
sold
that
somewhere.
that list is like long gone, my friend. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know where it is. But anyway, so I think once we started really getting bigger accounts, enterprise accounts, I think it really legitimized us, and people really started looking at us in a different way. Um, and then, what also transpired is that because we were in the ticketing business early, EDM started to really take off, and and venues went from selling just thousands of tickets to hundreds of
Mhm,
thousands of tickets. Um, and that turned into millions of tickets for us a year.
mhm.
And then, if you just do the math, we were getting, $3 convenience fee per ticket, that we would charge people. You sell 5, 10 million tickets. It's a lot of money, right? It's a lot of money. It's like thin air money, essentially,
Yeah.
for selling a digital ticket. And so anyway, that was I think the two turning points were when we got really enterprise big name customers and clients, and we could kind of flex that muscle, and then being starting to sell a lot of tickets, and
The
then we
tickets,
had
right.
we that also turned into an inflection point of our database, and we had the largest database of people who would go out, buy tickets, buy tables, go
Yeah,
do
the
all these
moment you
things
know
that
somebody who's willing to buy a table, right? Like that sort of is if you could
yes.
identify that person, you obviously know somebody who has a lot of disposable
Correct.
income and is
Correct.
not at all
And,
price conscious, right? And so
and,
that's
and we could tell exactly who they were, where they were, how much they
yeah.
spent. There was like a lot of data. We started doing really advanced things like with ticket sales. We could actually figure out demand generation and velocity of ticket sales and dynamically price the tickets. Now, you're talking about like 2008, right? Like that was really advanced for that time. Nobody
You
was
could
really
have built
thinking
some
about it.
dating apps off of the back of that data, I would imagine as well.
People call that artificial intelligence or data science now.
Yeah.
You know, but it existed. It just didn't exist as like, let's say, um, as easily, right? Easily
Yes. Yeah. You had to
understood
work.
and
You
easy.
had to do. So like take a step to like for an audience that joins this podcast, they care about experiences, right? They
Yes.
whether it's a digital experience, and we've talked about by buying a ticket to go to night show, fitting the demographic, fitting the change. So
Hmm.
it feels like some nightclub owners don't have to be young, right? Like they could be a different demographic than their customers.
Yes.
So you basically had a challenge, they had a challenge, and you came in and fixed the need in terms of digital experience, creating a toolkit for them.
It was even like it was more than that. We had to educate them on it,
You had
right?
to educate, right?
So yeah, there was no market on that, right, initially, but I think, um it was it was definitely a lot of teaching people how to do things or what to do initially. And then once like 10 places, like the top 10 places do something, the rest is just everybody copies, right?
Right,
So that was the key, was getting, maybe the top 10 venues to implement this in the right way. And then once they did, it was just kind of much more easy to sell it into other places because first of all, it's social proof. Like if the
right.
best nightclubs are doing it, then I should be doing it too. And second, it's like, oh, I got that email. I viscerally understand the experience once that happens, right? So yeah, I think even if you look at things like Constant Contact and MailChimp, initially when they started, it was a lot of educating the customer.
Yeah,
Like,
I hear you. Even like, and when you're selling SaaS, and I'm assuming you move towards SaaS eventually for some of this.
oh yeah,
Uh,
we
yeah,
were
yeah,
SaaS.
yeah,
We had a hybrid model, so it was like
yeah,
it was SaaS, and then we had an ad model too
yeah.
for
You're right. For
for other people, for
for the
like
promos
Mercedes
and
and
the
those.
ticketing
Yes,
model. Yeah. When
yeah,
you're generally selling SaaS circa 2005, and I was at Salesforce, and Success Factors at that era, you probably had more job educating people about the model and the technology as much as about the applications, right? Because people just weren't as familiar with, and that's something that I think people underestimate right now. But I remember I literally had like enabled our whole sales team, and I had like five set of differentiators that were pure tech and like why SaaS and other subscriptions matter, and then another five actually
yes.
on the product because that was not an obvious one. And I think in your industry, it must have been even more more of a challenge
It
than
it it
inside typical corporates.
it definitely was. What was actually even more interesting is that I actually was pretty prepared for that because of the failure of my previous company. So we
Mm.
were actually a SaaS company in 1999. We were trying to make basically Microsoft 365, but we did it through Citrix because there were no like web in 1999 there were no web-based apps, right? Like, so there were only Windows-based apps, but what you could do is you could kind of have like an icon in a web browser. You click Microsoft Word and it opens a Citrix session on a server, and that Microsoft Word is really running on a server somewhere, and the internet is like one big keyboard monitor and mouse wire, right? And so you get the latest version of
So
Word.
you
You can see.
created the Word web docs, like Google Docs type of version back in the 90s.
No, it was actual Word running
It
on
was actual
Windows,
running
but
Word, yeah, but
yeah,
through
yeah,
the
but
virtualization. Yeah,
correct. It was a it was
yeah,
exactly a virtualization. It was like a,
yeah,
virtual session, right? And so they didn't even have the word SaaS. They called it ASP, which is
yeah,
application service
exactly.
provider.
Yeah, yeah,
And like we would save your files in the cloud, but there was no word for cloud. And we had an app store because you could choose which apps your users could have access to, like Word, QuickBooks, whatever it was. But none of those words existed, right?
Yeah.
And so, and the ultimate failure happened not really because of the dot-com bust. I mean, yeah, funding dried up, but we were just too early. Like people were not ready to pay for, whatever, $30 a month per user for Word, right? They were used
Yeah.
to installing it on their computer and then every
Yeah.
couple of years buying an upgrade.
But it's funny you bring up this memory like that. I think people underestimate. We call everything cloud right now, but it was like ASP. Then it was on demand. Then it was SaaS. Now it's cloud. Same thing, more or less, right? Like I would say ASP
I
probably
mean, it's
was
exactly
not
the same thing.
multi-tenant, most of the time. So like it was probably a little bit more old school, but
Yeah.
fundamentally the same
Well, it's the
concept. It
same thing
just
with
goes
AI
rebranding.
now.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
they call like chatbots AI agents now, right?
yeah,
It's the
yeah,
same thing.
yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
it's just like a more advanced form of the same thing. So
I'm curious, like actually, like jumping a little bit ahead. So you've had this great set of lessons, right? Like where lesson one led you to success in the second business. Second business, you discovered that hey, this texting thing is a real deal. There's an opportunity, and then you went out of the nightlife experience industry and built as leading SaaS business for SMS. Um, how when you look at your new ventures now and as an investor, are you looking for serial entrepreneurs that kind of had gone through a similar journey and like had like problems and then uncovered these
yeah.
problems? Are you looking for
Um,
people, guide me a little bit of how that informs your current strategy?
yeah, I mean that would be ideal, but as a practical matter, multi-exited founders typically raise at higher valuations. And so, they can demand more from investors, and typically they get funded right away. So, if you've built two or more, or even one company and had an exit and had a respectable exit, um, obviously
It's
as an
harder to
investor,
discover you. It's harder to discover Shane, than it would be to go to Sequoia or Excel and just
yeah,
like
you
get a
could
big
you could
check.
you
Right,
could go
right.
to
Yeah,
yeah, you
yeah,
could go to one of those bigger ones. It's actually funny though, as a practical matter, I think that a lot of founders these days are trying to avoid those bigger VCs for the most part, or doing a hybrid of VCs and family offices because they see the value the family offices bring. And as a practical matter, unlike VCs, we're not as onerous on them.
yeah.
We're not like constantly asking them for reporting or get telling them how they should run their business or those types of things. And really, as an investor, like I don't really want to do that. Like if I have to tell you what to do, then like I'm not investing in you, because like
Yeah.
that's not the point of investing. The point of investing is backing people who you think are smarter than you and can do what you can't do, right? In my opinion. And honestly, like maybe I know some things, right? But things change and the world changes, and maybe something that I experienced 5 years ago is not true anymore. And I may skew you as a founder into doing something wrong, that would be that I think is right but is actually wrong. So as a practical matter, I just really want someone who has the ability, I think, to deal with problems head on and to solve them, right? Without, if they ask me for help, I'm going to obviously give them help, but I don't want that to be the de facto mode of things, right? Um, so, yeah, obviously, if you've done it before, I'd love to, invest in you because you know, the likelihood of you winning again is high. But that's not exclusive to me. I think, spending a lot of time with founders is important. And, just cliche, but 90% of it is who you're investing in, not what they're doing. And so you have to be good at understanding who you're investing in.
So how do you do that, right? Like, how do you get to the gut of the person you're investing in? When we chatted last time, we had some very interesting stories about immigrants, right?
Mm,
The trials of like some challenges that you've overcome, whether it's kind of in
yeah.
your early life, family life. Where do you pinpoint toward that grit and determination and persistence to chew through glass or whatever it takes to get that
Um,
business to
I'll
return
give
your
you an
money?
listen, it depends honestly if I'm doing a significant investment, I'm going to obviously spend more time. If I'm doing a less significant investment, I'm going to spend less time. And it's like, um, you can't, there's only a finite amount of time that you have, right? But when I'm doing more significant investments, I actually, I'll give you like an example. I invested in a company called Flex Storage that does like kind of, um, storage units that they bring to you, and then you put your stuff in it, and either kind of like pods,
Okay.
but it's a tech enabled one. And I found, and they either take it away for you or they leave it on your property for you. And basically, you don't have to go to self storage anymore. They can bring it to you. And I spent a week at their office, literally, and I got on the truck and I delivered, a whole day's worth of trailers, and I got to meet who the customers are. I got to see how the founder talks on the phone. I got to see how he or she interacts with their team. And when you do that, there's no faking that. Like, there's no way
Right.
to fake. Like, I mean, I guess if someone wants to create an elaborate fake, they could, but as it's the probability of that is low. Um, but I literally do that.
But
If I'm
you
gonna
also probably have a horse sense now, right? Like what's real and what's fake, right? Having done this
so yeah,
before.
I mean to get to the point of me deciding to go there for a week,
Mm,
obviously I have to I'm not that wasn't my first intuition. I met with the person, I spoke to them several times,
mm,
um and that kind of thing. But you know, in that respect, I knew the guy had been in the army for like a decade, right?
right, right.
And that, and had logistics thing and experience, and five of the guys that are working with him were under him, and he was the captain. So some things just make common sense.
Yeah. Let's reverse the gears. Like if let's say there's a founder or aspiring founder listening to this, and they want to kick the tire on Shane in your family office, right? And like
Yes.
what do people do? What do you find that impresses you when they're doing due diligence on you? Let's say it's a big enough investment where it matters, right? It's not like a tiny
Yeah.
check. Because I think the this is another important part of equation. Like a lot of people are in a fortunate position where capital is not the real constraints. It's either if this capital is easy and friendly, or it's maybe not
Hmm.
significant in volume, but it's high value and signaling and introductions and whatever else that's not needed, not for day-to-day execution, but some kind of a lever that
Hmm.
helps entrepreneur get an edge. And that's how I think about capital. Is it going to get me an edge?
Hmm.
If I don't need tons of it, right? And so the question is for you, like if you were reverse selling yourself, right? What's the value add for Shane or broader the family office as an asset class? You started covering it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what happens is, when you get an investor like me, it's it's my money, so I'm gonna really give a shit, to tell you the truth.
Right.
So unlike a VC who goes and raises money from a lot of people, and you're maybe dealing with like an account rep that gets paid, I don't know, $150,000 a year, and works for a partner who raised money from institutional capital that doesn't really care. You're one of 1,000 companies that they invested in, and if you go broke, it doesn't really matter. Um, I think, it makes a big difference.
So the
So
portfolio for you is more concentrated on these investments, and also it's touches your financial returns very directly. So you give a shit.
absolutely, yeah. And so what also tends to happen is when a family office finds a good investment, they tend to share it with other family offices. And most family offices are run by, entrepreneurs who've had exits. I mean, they're not
Mm,
like dynastic, where,
mhm, mhm.
I mean, some are, but like I would say in this day and age, a lot of them are run by other entrepreneurs that have had exits, and they have connections, and they have resources and stuff that, are valuable, and that can either be potential customers for you, can be other investors for you, can be mentors for you, and those types of things. So, and also, by the way, what's interesting about family offices is that they can move a lot faster than a VC can in most cases. They have latitude, right? I mean, and they can do things that are, like I've done a range of investments from like med tech to self-storage to, you know, robotics to CPG, it all, it's all fair game. There's no mandate. I don't have investors that I said that this is all I'm going to invest in, right?
So actually, that's very interesting because I was intrigued by your both the barbell strategy. Maybe you could kind of cover that in a few words, and also the
Yeah,
range of investments, and particularly the mix of real estate portfolio like Santa Monica Pier, and then
yeah,
doing super deep tech stuff. Right. So
yeah.
talk to us a little bit about that, and maybe how do you bring it all together?
Yeah, well, I'm very fortunate in that, I have a background in tech, so I can, let's say, assess and diligence tech pretty well. And so, I built what I didn't say is, Junebug and Easy Texting were profitable businesses because they were bootstrapped. And so, I had a lot of real estate investment. Experience, let's say, over the last 20 years, because I did come from an immigrant family who always told me to reinvest my money into real estate and not particularly the stock market, although maybe I should have done the stock market. But
You
anyway,
pursued the
so
American dream of real estate version.
yeah, absolutely. So I had a lot of experience with it, and I had been investing in it for a while. But really, getting back to the barbell strategy, the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years, I've been kind of looking at things through the lens of who are the leaders in deep tech, let's say like AI, quantum, robotics, those types of things, right? Because I think that's, I mean, I'm not saying anything that people don't know, but that's definitely the future, right? Um, and I'm relatively young, so I think that, for me to think 20 years out is still okay for me. Um, and then and then I'm trying to invest in businesses or assets that I don't think can really be disrupted by deep tech, right?
Mm,
Or let's just say I don't have a good enough imagination to think about the ways in which they could be disrupted. And so when you're talking about the Santa Monica Pier, it's a business. It's kind of like Coney Island, right? It has a
yeah.
games, food and beverage, it has rides. It's been around for 30 years. It's either number one or two tourist destination in Los Angeles. And so, unless tourism somehow gets disrupted by AI, which is hard to imagine how that would happen,
Yeah.
unless we go into like a virtual world or something, which could happen. It's in the realm of possibilities, but I think it's a low probability event. people are going to still want to like go and experience these things and take their kids and do that. So, and they want to eat, right? And like have fun. And so, and they want to be in California,
If you're in California, you will get thirsty. It's hot.
yes, absolutely. I mean, the weather's good. People
Yeah.
it's the United States. And so, yeah, maybe, right now it's had some short-term problems, with the fires and stuff like that. But as a practical matter, um, so when I'm looking at that, and again, it may just be my short-sightedness of my imagination. I can't really think of a way that I think that in 20 years from now, it's not going to be here, right?
And the same thing,
And
it sounds like the storage investment, like, are
exactly,
people going to
like
be buying crap? Yes. Are people going to be lazy? Yes. So if you
yes,
take and control the crap in a convenient way, is there value there? Yes. Right. Like that sort of sounds like
absolutely,
that's
like
the thesis, right? Like, by the way,
yes.
a funny story. When I was moving from San Francisco to London to grow Success Factors business, I had this many years of earned library of books, and I was just
Hmm.
like so proud of it. It was my like the most valuable thing, and I kind of decided to play it cheap and just give it to a family member in storage, and they kind of misplaced it, dislocated. And of all my possessions, right, like this is still kind of a little nuts. Oh, I'm so bummed. They eventually got
Yeah,
donated, so I feel like
but
that was good. But like it was still like this thing that's like, this is a
yes.
personal thing, right? So you're saying like, hey, we reduce the risk and make it easy for you not to lose something that happened
Well,
20.
the self-storage business is a huge business.
Yeah,
Just, the self-storage guys themselves, if you go and look at public storage or extra space storage, they're publicly traded companies, they're
yeah,
REITs, and I mean, they command a big premium because, as what you just said, people may leave their homes and downgrade to a cheaper place, but they will never give up their like memorabilia. It could
yeah.
be in storage for like 30 years, and they just don't want to get rid of their shit. And so that like they may have never even seen it in 30 years, but
Well,
they just never.
that's like basic loss aversion is working for this business, right? Like psychology
Absolutely.
101, right? You don't want to lose your stuff, right? And then there's so much crap that it's so hard to sift through it. So you just kind of solve it with convenience, which is what you're doing. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So we're either doing that or doing the on the opposite spectrum of things. And then anything in the middle where I can't really determine whether or not it's going to be disrupted or is going to be around, I'm just staying away from because I'm not smart enough to figure it out, right? And I'd rather and there's so many bets to be made. I don't have to take those bets, right?
so Shane,
You win all the bets you don't take, pretty much.
so how now that you're out of New York, right? You live in South
In Miami, yeah.
Florida, Miami area. Uh, how has that move influenced your either decisions about investing or generally kind of worldview? Because I think a lot of people are excited about Miami at some point coming there. Certainly, New York is still continuing, but like San Francisco, it feels like a bunch of people left San Fran, moved to Miami, and then some are coming back, some are still fans. So you've seen
Yeah.
this trajectory. Tell me a little bit. You're investing in super cool things from Miami. So like, what is that location
Yeah.
influence your decision
So
process on investing?
so I think that if you're talking about real estate and traditional businesses, you know, I think Miami is, just South Florida, Florida in general, Texas, these are they're great places still, and there are a lot of smart people doing really smart things here. And it's a great market, it's a friendly market, it's a growing market. And so if you're going in that direction, I would. I would highly suggest it. As a practical matter, I think that if you're going to go into tech or cutting edge types of things, Miami has proven itself that it can't sustain that. The talent has not. I'm just talking about South Florida in general.
Yeah.
And obviously this is a generalization, right? There are really successful tech companies here, but I'm just talking about like in general, what I'm seeing in general, I see that, SF, New York, LA is where all the founders are eventually going. There were a bunch that were here in Miami, especially crypto, but the talent just was not here, right? The talent was missing, and so there's not this
Or
like
distracted, you would you say?
it's so I think the talent, yes, they're distracted in that the people who moved here already have money, or
Yeah.
like they had an exit or something like that, or they're the general partners of these funds, right? That have a lot of money. And so, and they can afford, places here and to stay here, even though their industry isn't here, right? And so you'll get a lot of that, but you don't get what you need in a startup, which is young, hungry, um, not even just young, but hungry, entrepreneurs that are willing to do,
Whatever it takes.
24th.
Show up at
Yeah,
3 a.m. and try to close the deal with cash and then
ab-
try to do
a-
that deposit at a bank. That sort of
absolutely.
mindset, right? Like Shane circa early 2000s.
Yes. I mean, literally, we would go like to Wells Fargo and like, the next morning and deposit the cash, right? Um, so I don't think that's here. Although, if you can pull it off here, you might do very well because again, those people who are
There's
funding
a
you
lot
are
of high
here.
net worth. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's worth coming here at least to look for people that are investors. But I can tell you that, also work from home is dead pretty much in the startup ecosystem. Uh, I think that everybody kind of came to the realization if you want to build and scale a business, the magic happens in person. There's been a definite vibe shift on that front. So, if you're going to do that, you might as well go where all the other,
So if you want
you
warm
know,
weather, stick to South Bay or LA. Not Miami is sort of for very specific businesses may work, but
yeah,
not as
yeah,
a center of gravity. Israel is another great location
absolutely.
for
Very,
those
very innovative.
that are into warm weather. Um, Now, if we back to warm weather climate, so like let's talk a little bit more about Santa Monica Pier, right? Because the investment size that you made there is quite sizable, if I recall our conversation, right?
Yeah,
So
I mean, it's a iconic place, so
it,
it's a large
so
investment.
how did you think about that as kind of like why put so much bets in that, right? Like, so I get like we get the barbell
Yeah.
strategy, but the actual like allocation
So
component.
I think of something like the Santa Monica Pier as a forever asset. Imagine if someone came to you and said, "Oh, look, you can buy, the operation. You can't buy it. You can't. We can't actually buy the Santa Monica Pier, right? It's owned by the city of Santa Monica, but we have a ground lease there for a long period of time, and there's an operations there. There's it's a business, right?
Right.
And so it's a business and a tourist destination. And so, as a practical matter, if someone told you, look, you can have the business surrounding the Statue of Liberty, like, and you
Yeah.
can buy it, would you buy it?
Right.
Absolutely, you'd buy it because, for the next 100 years, you're going to make money, right?
So basically,
And
diamonds.
so,
It's kind of a De Beers. Diamonds are forever strategy. This is a diamond. It
yes.
doesn't have to
And
be high tech diamond, right? Like it's just flagship
yes, and
experience,
it's
right?
it's
And
yeah, it's cash flowing.
yeah,
It's been cash flowing. It has a 30-year history that you can look back on, and so It's iconic. I mean, everybody that I tell that, every like there hasn't been one person that I've said, oh, that doesn't know that Ferris wheel, right?
Right.
It's the eighth most Instagram place on earth, actually, just to be,
And
you know, out there.
The Hollywood being there and like all the films that are taking place in LA, around LA, kind of like
Correct.
helps you make sure this will always stay there unless Hollywood gets displaced, right? It will always be the location. Is that kind of one another way of thinking of why it's so popular?
No, I just think that, New York, LA, Miami are like the three biggest cities in New York, right? I mean, in America. And a lot of these things are mostly tourist, like it's like 70% tourist driven. And so it's really a bet on whether or not LA will continue to be a
Be a
tourist
tourist.
destination in America. And if you believe that, and you believe that in the next, for the next 30 to 50 years, if that's the case, then, this is a good bet. And so, as a practical matter, I don't get opportunities like this very often. And when you see something like this, those are the times I think that you take outsized bets
So
when you see something like that.
so to what degree you're this is back to experience and the kind of maybe let's talk a bit more about how do you create this experience economy, right? Like so we just described what it is like going to Santa Monica Pier is an experience. You're participating in that. How are you thinking about what else can we do to create modern you know memories that are fostered through digital experiences, through physical experiences? Are you spending cycles on that given your investments, or is this just something that you delegate to the operating
Well,
company?
my partner operates it. I'm not, he's really the general partner. So like, I'm not really operating. I don't have the infrastructure for that. Um, and actually quite often I do that. Either invest with or JV with, or, that kind of thing of operators that, and general partners that I know are very good. And that way, I can spend my time doing more of the stuff I like to do instead of like actually operating
You
the
get to
place.
live in Miami and
Yes.
not travel and do quality control in Santa Monica Pier,
Yeah. Well,
the way
this,
Disney
yeah,
does.
yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, I mean, look, there's definitely been, we upgraded the F&B component recently. There's a place it's now called Snackville. So now there's like characters involved with it, kind of like you would do like a McDonald's, but like a healthier version,
Yeah.
right? And so those experiences matter. There are mascots now. Um, we've upgraded and expanded the amount of rides there are. We've definitely implemented technology so that people don't wait online as much. We got the first alcohol license that they've ever had in their history. So now you can kind of, as a parent, you can have a glass of wine or a beer or whatever, um, you know, and enjoy
Is
yourself as well.
Junebug owner using supporting you guys
No,
in that?
no. Junebug was I mean, I sold that business almost 20 years ago. So that's a long that's like um it feels like a lifetime ago,
Yeah.
honestly. It feels like a
So you
lifetime ago.
basically, but to bring back to the topic, you are continuing to extend this platform as part, and that was part of the investment thesis, is that you will
Y-
create
Yes,
more
absolutely.
modern, more kind of Universal Studios on a pier type of vibe, where it's something that becomes more and more talked about, and you get more throughput, obviously, in terms of tourists and their experiences. It sounds like that was the approach.
Yes, absolutely. There was definitely a there's definitely like a business plan, let's just say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other than just kind of purchasing it. So, yeah, I mean, I think, in that respect, there were a bunch of things that were pretty obvious that we could do to improve.
So as we wrap up, Shane, I'd like to try something new, but really relevant to our audience. So we care about creating great human experiences, be they in person, be they digital. So you've written a book about the nightlife
Mhm.
experiences. You've obviously invested in amazing assets. You've run teams. So what are kind of a couple examples of horrible experiences that you've went through either kind of early in your life that helped you, that taught you a lesson of some kind, and then we'll come back on the finish on a more positive, like what are kind of lessons that you would
Uh,
like to share with our audience?
yeah, yeah. Actually, my book is full of horrible experiences of how I got screwed over, and you can, from like, getting, someone giving me their credit card that ended up declining, and bounced checks. You know, uh, is there's like almost too many of them for me to pick one. But and I think what taught me the most about grit um, is actually going through litigation. And it
Mm.
sounds really weird, but in easy texting that happened. So, my book is filled with all the different kinds of ways I got screwed over by people in that industry, and how you can avoid getting screwed over, and how I use those lessons subsequently in either easy texting or as I'm investing. But
So
in easy
maybe
texting,
that's the secret advice for entrepreneurs. If you're worried that you're in an industry where you'll get screwed, Shane should be your investor. He's seen it all.
yes,
He'll he'll
yes.
he'll be the
I'm
he'll be the
almost like,
differentiated value.
I think it's almost, I think when you're young and sort of naive, it's an asset to you, because I don't know if I would have done the things that I done had I known what I had to go through to get
Mm.
to get through success, right? Like all the like pain and suffering and sleepless nights, and um, I don't know, weeks on end of not sleeping and working, um, what if I knew, if someone told me beforehand that you would have to do all of these things, um, I'm not so sure I would have
Yeah.
done it.
So
It's like saying,
the
like,
sleepless night of the nightlife industry were not sleepless for the reason that people thought, right?
no, no, I was literally working all the time, and then like
Yeah.
going to work, and we had 100 some odd employees, like it was like with big offices and stuff. So, um, yeah, in easy texting, there's a long story, but I'll make it short. But there were some existential problems that we had, mainly getting sued for spam text messages, right?
Mhm.
And so, we didn't send us spam text messages, but we had some bad actors that subverted our systems,
Yeah.
and sent out some spam, and so we got sued alongside them. And the damages for these types of things are so large that they could literally bankrupt your company, especially if
Mm.
you're a young company, right? And when you get litigated against in federal court or something like that, just the legal expenses of defending yourself are huge. And so, I made it through one litigation, but and it cost a lot of money, and I learned a lot about how the whole system works. And then I was like, if I have to go through this again, I'm not going to be able to survive. Uh, and so, if, real, like in the real spirit of entrepreneurship, I was like, you know what? I'm going to proactively spend some money and see how I can prevent myself from being sued again. Because, obviously, a lot of these class action lawyers, they get paid on contingency. And so they don't really like,
They don't have a hard stop, right? Like they
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
they don't really care. And so, I mean, I was like some guy with a SaaS company, and then the next thing I know, I'm, meeting with the FCC and DC and doing a petition to them to give us an exemption, right? And like, would I have ever thought in my life that I would be sitting in front of the
Right.
FCC asking for an exemption for text messaging providers from this rule? Um, no, but eventually we got through it, and it really did prevent a lot of things from happening that could have really ruined our business
That's
eventually.
really interesting. So the medium innovation, the distribution innovation was the whole raison d'être for the business, but it also was the biggest risk factor and the
Absolutely. Well,
biggest negative
anytime you
negative.
innovate,
Yeah,
that's how it
yeah.
goes, right? People find
Got
novel ways to screw you over.
exactly. We haven't screwed anybody over on this one before.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so moving over to the positive, right? Like what are
yeah,
and these could be things that you've done in running your company or creating kind of
yeah,
environments that just make the human spirit thrive. Because I think oftentimes we
yeah.
don't think like I think Santa Monica Fair. I'm thinking like I'm thinking Pierce, or I'm thinking like children, memorable experiences. You're creating a
No, yeah.
memory, which is
I
priceless.
just,
Like, tell me
yeah.
more about
I
like what are you thinking about?
I actually, my latest investment um, is a company called Endiatics, which is a robotic pill that you can swallow, and you get on Zoom like this with your doctor, and you drink a couple of glasses of water, and the doctor controls the pill in your
Hold on,
stomach and
I'm
does,
just gonna take it right now.
yeah, exactly,
Mm.
and does an
So
upper
what's happening to
endoscopy for
me?
you.
Oh wow!
Absolutely.
Oh, it's
And
working.
so,
Uh,
yeah, and they can
how
do
many hours? I can send you back the analysis
a
in the
no, it's real time. It's real time. It streams the video from inside your stomach and does an upper endoscopy for you. And as a practical matter, if you want to do an upper endoscopy right now, you have to go to the hospital, get sedated, but put to sleep, plus something like $15,000, and you need an anesthesiologist and a gastroenterologist and two nurses just to
yeah.
look into your stomach and see if there's anything wrong. This pill,
Anytime there's
can
an
do that for you.
anesthesiologist, that's already like a risk factor that this might backfire.
No, people, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. People die
yeah,
from anesthesia all the
yeah,
time just to look
yeah,
into their stomach. Why?
yeah,
And they lose half a day of work
yeah.
to do that. And so, as a practical matter, the experience of having an upper endoscopy should be as simple as you taking a pill and being able to 10 minutes, the doctor take a look visually, make sure everything's okay. And then if obviously something's not okay, then you can go into the doctor. But 70% of the 75 million of these performed a year globally are just screenings, just to look into
Preventative
your
screening,
stomach.
right, right. Yeah, yeah.
Correct. And so why do you have to put someone to sleep to do that? And why does it have to cost so much money? And why do they have to? And a lot of people won't do it because they're scared. Me particularly, just on a personal note, you know, I have a lot of personal connection to this because, 35 years ago, my father passed of gastric cancer, mainly because he was too scared the year before to go and get a tube put down his throat. And just think about how many people that happens to. They're
Yeah.
just too scared to do the procedure because they don't want a tube stuck down their throat. And so, there should probably be 400 million of these done a year, but only 75 are done because it's too expensive or people are scared to do it. And so, from an standpoint, user experience
Yeah.
standpoint, imagine all you had to do was take a pill in the morning, 10 minutes, get on a Zoom with your doctor, and you can do this. And you can do this like on a yearly basis, and it could stop, a bunch of different issues that people suffer from. So,
This is so amazing. And first of all, thank you for sharing the personal story because it
yes,
actually means so much, right? That you could go now be in a position to rectify the pain for other families that you've gone through, I imagine, in a very profound
absolutely.
way. And
Absolutely.
shout
Yeah.
out to you for finding that opportunity and doing it.
I
That's kind
literally
of
found it.
yeah,
I
yeah,
saw that they did a TED Talk in
yeah,
April, and
yeah,
the guy swallowed it, and the other
yeah,
founder is the head of GI at Mayo Clinic in the United
yeah.
States. and they performed an upper endoscopy, and I literally went on LinkedIn the next day, called them, and I said, "Can I come to your offices?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're in Silicon Valley. Come." And I got on a plane and I went, and we funded their entire round pretty much.
That's amazing. And I think it kind of goes back to the beginning of like what are the most meaningful entrepreneurial adventures that it's the ones where you've seen the pain firsthand. It's not where you kind of start with sort of like
Yes.
pseudo bullshit MBA approach where you're like, I'm gonna screen through these 15 opportunities and then no, you actually feel the pain, know it, maybe viscerally understand it. And I
I
could
mean,
just
I get an endoscopy every year because of
yeah.
this, and I
So
literally
you knew
know
the
that.
pain, you know the pain, right? It's
Yeah.
funny. I was talking to someone recently and was asking, well, like, how did you join Success Factor? I didn't fund it, but like it was pretty early. How did you do it? How did you know that this is gonna work? I'm like, well, when we were refugees and got to the US, my mom got a job like and she got promoted and she needed to do employee performance reviews for her QA team that she was managing. And I was a high school, like barely like high school English kind of guy. And then she was like, I'm suffering in pain of writing these performance reviews. Can you help me? So I was writing these performance reviews for employees for my mom. And I was like, this is such a pain, right? In a software world, kind of similar to your what you've seen the
Yes.
industry operating old school, right? The way we started Relayto, it's like we see these PDFs that have all these good ideas, just like this procedures. They're really helpful. They could save lives, but people don't want to engage with them, don't want to do it because it's painful consumer experience, right? And so by we're reducing friction for consuming what's good for people, right? And that's what you've done with this investment. So I love it. I think that supports a lot of the themes of bringing great human experiences means that we need to recognize our limitations, that we're a little bit averse to loss, averse to trying new things, um that we kind of have some laziness to us, so anything that removes friction is a win. And it sounds like
Hmm.
that's some of the themes that underpin whether you're investing in storage or healthcare procedures that are saving lives, right? But through better user experience for the patient.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I think that's listen, if you can if you can invest and you can meet the mandate of your investment, obviously every investment is the point of it is to make money, but if you can do that and at the same time do something amazing and good that helps a lot of people, then why not? You should definitely. I mean, I always look for stuff like that, and I always look for stuff that I have personal experience with because I can make a better decision that way.
Shane, this has been so wonderful to connect and deep dive into this. If people want to find you and your investments or other areas, where can you be
Yeah,
found?
sure. I'm really active on LinkedIn, so if you just type in Shane Neman, I'm there, and so I read all my messages there and pretty active there.
Shane Neman, ladies and gentlemen, from creating memorable experiences in Santa Monica Pier to saving the lives of people who are hesitant to take the necessary medical procedures. Thank you very much. Great to have you
Thank
on.
you. Thanks for having me.